think that's one of the other important issues. If you want to issue, there's a lot of learnings coming out of this, but if you want to issue a heritage order, do it damn quick. Don't wait 12 months.
So the other course of action could have been for an external party to, they can't challenge in the Environment Court, but they could challenge on matters of law in the High Court. Was there any hint, have any parties taken, or have you had any word of parties taking a High Court challenge on matters of law related to the resource consent that was issued?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Could that have been a course of action?
I understand a third party could have sought a judicial review on that consent, but once again, I'm not a lawyer, so...
Yeah.
Do we want, I can see a lawyer appearing, Major Jane, at your side. Would you like to comment, James?
Only to say that that is correct, Councillor Darby. A third party could have sought judicial review of the resource consent decision-making process, and that hasn't been done.
And now that a lawyer has appeared, and just on the first question, and I think if you were there, James, on the risk to council, and I need to get my head around this, because a 12-month delay on issuing an NOI, how would the High Court view a delay from your experience of monitoring cases?
The matter would be before the Environment Court. So
it's Environment Court.
Yes, so they would be looking at all the circumstances around the process, and delay is one factor which could impact negatively.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Darby. We've got Councillor Brewer and Councillor Anai, and then we'll move to the recommendations. Councillor Brewer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to cover off, Noel, if you can, we're focusing here on this resolution, which I'll be supporting, around a heritage order. But when you look back on the 20th of October resolutions by the Heritage Advisory Panel, you see that their requests are twofold, and I just wanted to get the first part of it, which was request Auckland Council to undertake a heritage assessment in light of the new important heritage information. And we don't address that directly in the report or in the recommendations. So I know that the schools, I know that the Heritage Unit have had a look at this, and I know the school, have committed to 2 with varying outcomes heritage assessments, but I just want it from you again as to why we're not directing that issue that the Heritage Panel have resolved for us to look at, i.e. do a heritage assessment.
So from the council's perspective, there would be no need to do a heritage assessment if it doesn't proceed with a heritage order. If it proceeded with a heritage order, then you probably would need to do a heritage assessment. The reason why we didn't do one initially is that the King's School have in fact done a heritage assessment prepared by Sam and Reed, and we would concur with their conclusions that this is a heritage building. So there doesn't seem to be much point in repeating that exercise.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Anai.
I'm just going through my mind. Is it, with the contracts being let, what is the situation if we do they decide to use it as a facade? I mean, what is going to be created with that problem? Will that create a major problem financially?
I'm sorry, I can't really answer that.
No, I accept that.
Yeah.
It's difficult for you to answer, but just the question needs to be asked. But if we do go back and say, look, have a facade in place, retain it for facade, but I'm just concerned about the contracts being let and what that all is, and what the architectural part of it is.
And whilst part of that, I think we can discuss, it's not immediately germane to the actual decision that we need to make. So it's, we're thinking about the role of the school, or the sort of construction time and the letting of tenders and all that sort of thing, that we need to make a decision on, is this worthy of us reversing our decision or not?
Sorry, Madam Chair, my point is, well, my vote is based on that. The fact is, if I agree that they could do a facade question is crucial.
Just on the facade question, as I said, that would be an issue that could come out through the heritage order process, through the ability to modify, alter or remove the heritage order. I guess my advice is that will come at a cost to council.
Okay. So let's move. We've got the recommendation in front of us. Councillor Cooper, do you want to speak to the recommendation?
Yep. I do actually, because it actually just follows on from what Noel has just said, and it's highlighted in the report. And I know that the settlement for Thomas Dew is confidential, but I do know that it's more than $999,000 to compensate for basically telling them they can't carry on and do what they want to do. So I guess those are some of my concerns, and I'm talking about risk because risk is really highlighted in the report. And I know the server is down at the moment, so I can't find the minutes of the actual meeting, the hearings meeting. But at the time, it was absolutely supported by the local board. And Remuera ratepayers and people like that. So for me, Noel's just reassured us that it's the same information, looking at it now as it was then. So to actually, and you just said reverse the decision. We can't reverse the decision. We can't take the consent away. We could place an order on it, but that will open another can of worms. So I urge councillors to support this recommendation. It is actually just confirming that we inform the Heritage Advisory Panel that its recommendation to have a look at whether a heritage order be imposed. The recommendation from our staff is that it's not supported. So that's what we're voting on today, not to revoke any consent. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So speaking to the recommendation, Councillor Clow.
It's a question, but I may be supportive. Just know the actual Heritage Fund, we've made a tentative commitment to St James for 15 million, which is budgeted for, and we had that there. Just remind me how much therefore is left in the pot for the next 5 years, or 3 years, it doesn't matter. And then also just confirm that if we did go down the track to not support this recommendation and there was a judicial review and council had to compensate, I'm assuming that money has to come from what little is left in the fund. Is that true?
So there is, just to take those questions in order, there will be, putting aside St James, there is $3 million each year in the acquisition fund. This year it's nominally allocated. In 3 years' time, the top-up of $5 million is allocated for St James, so in each year there would be $3 million left to deal with all the buildings you have. The other part of the question is that costs and compensation for the Thomas Dew building came out of this fund.
Yeah. So I just want to signal, that's my great weariness, is we just raid the coffers totally and really leave us struggling to do anything anywhere else in Auckland. So, and I would like to support the people that have come in to present, but I have concerns about cleaning the coffers out.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clow. Councillor Brewer.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. And I just have just got some comments, and some of you all have asked, what's the local feeling on this, and those in the gallery may contest this, but I suppose the best evidence I can give on local feeling is I haven't received, apart from an email, say from Rob Thomas, who's done a huge effort in bringing this into the consciousness of Auckland and the council, and Troy Churton and others as well. I haven't, from the members of the public, I haven't received one email on this issue or one phone call. Now, that's not to say it's not important, but what I want to raise with you, Madam Chair, is that there is, as I highlighted during Simon's presentation, a lot of genuine, and I've spoken to the headmaster on it and members of the school community, and looking at their website, there is a lot of genuine anticipation and excitement around the new build. Now, that doesn't take away from the merit of the old build, but we also need to consider, Madam Chair, that the Ōrākei Local Board, while they supported board member Churton, and he's done a good job on raising local board's ability to submit on notification to commissioners and the likes, as we've seen the last couple of weeks. I don't think, and I stand to be corrected if there's an officer that wants to correct me, that the Ōrākei Local Board have formalised any resolutions around supporting, as a collective, supporting the retention of the Hannah block. I don't think there are resolutions of a formal position pro the Hammer block from the Ōrākei Local Board. And when you weigh up, Madam Chair, what Noel has told us today, that a judicial review would highly likely overturn any protection order that we impose, the significant, albeit unidentified costs in and around compensation and legal, and the fact, when I was talking to George Farrant on this, that no one, as has been confirmed by Noel and the records of the Heritage Unit, no individual or organisation has ever tried to schedule, according to our own documentation at Council, has ever tried to schedule this building for category status under the Central Isthmus District Plan of 1999 or the proposed unitary plan. So, Madam Chair, I am going to vote for this because I see what has been peppered through this as a huge potential risk to Council around not only its reputation but the cost, and when you weigh it up with the likelihood of a judicial review going siding with Council over a heritage protection order, it certainly makes sense that this is all sadly all a little too late. And so I think the biggest message that we can get out of this is that, as George Farrant said to me the other day, the most powerful thing in heritage and historic retention is not so much retrospectively trying to fix it or reactively trying to schedule it, but for our communities and for Council as well to proactively get ahead of development plans. So on this one, I'll be supporting the school and the process and the recommendations that have been strongly recommended by our heritage planning and legal officers alike. Thank you.
Okay, so that's been 3 speakers for. I've got Councillor Lee and Councillor Watson. I'm just going to call for speakers against, and then we'll put the recommendations. So, Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I would agree with Councillor Brewer that this is a sad story, an Auckland version of a Greek tragedy, really, and yet another example of how things can go wrong when you choose not to notify. And 99% of our consents in Auckland are non-notified, and all the trouble we've had, especially over the last year, but in previous years, comes back to decisions that weren't notified but actually should have been and would have achieved a better outcome had they been. No, the Hannah block was never scheduled, like many historic buildings in Auckland. And I guess the response I've had from King's old boys is that they always considered that the Hannah block was the heart of the school and its permanence was as immutable as the school's tradition. But unfortunately they were mistaken there, and the regulators who should have been whom the ratepayers pay to do this work, didn't do it. Now, when Mr Thomas and Mr Churton came to see the Heritage Advisory Panel, it was certainly the first time I realised the building was under threat, and the panel itself, which I would say are the best group of heritage experts in Auckland, felt unanimously that the council should try to do something. And the Heritage Protection Order is a thing under the, it has a place under Section 139, I think, of the RMA, but it is also a process. And some of the advice we received was that utilising or deploying a heritage protection order process could exert some leverage to enable some sort of compromise to be achieved. The council, I suppose understandably, takes the worst case scenario